Hi, Joe Cerrone.
Hey, Al Rosa.
Welcome to CAD 116 Basic AutoCAD in our Zoom weekly classroom meeting. Alrighty, so as we're working with our course, it takes a little time to kind of get used to it. So remember, the Zoom meetings are every week on Tuesday at 9 o'clock, and you're welcome to attend or request some additional help, and we can work on any questions that you may have with that. And then as we look at the exercises, we've released Module 3. And what we'll do is we'll put them in the main splash page and we'll go through what we're supposed to work on. And so we're going to work with Chapter 6 from AutoCAD Instructor, Module 3, and then there's a Module 3 quiz. We have a video from previous semester showing how we were running that. It's pretty much the same every time, because we're reading the same material. We're going through basic drawing setup. Okay, basically when we work with drawing setups, we're working with templates and title blocks. And I realize this is a little bit small. If we go to our AutoCAD instructor and then we look at chapter 6, that's a little bigger. We're setting up a drawing. Okay, and so what does setting up a drawing mean? It means setting up the units. Okay, and the title blocks that we bring in have the proper units. And so when we look at a CAD drawing, here's our architectural drawing, and we look at the floor plan for that. I like to have the menu bar on, so the menu bar is enabled, and you have to know where that little button is to be able to do it, or at least to enable it. And then you go to Format, Units, and you can see that this is an architectural drawing. And so the units are important because when you input feet and inches on an architectural drawing, you would do something like this, where if I wanted an 18-foot line, I'd say, and here is another thing I don't want to not say, is we're working with snap and grid on these drawings, and it's kind of like training wheels. And so with snap and grid, everything works according to the dimensions that we set up in the drafting settings. And so on architectural drawings, I usually will set them up at 6 inches for the snap spacing, and then on the grid I'll set those up at 12 inches or 1 foot, and so you can see how the units are updated. You want polar tracking to be enabled. And then on this one, we will use object snap. And so we'll use OSnap. I also like tracking on. But as we go through and we start working with the units for these templates, when I draw a line, I'm tracking out 9 feet 0. If I type 10 feet, it works great. But if you're trying to draw it without a template, and so for example, if you just say, hey, file new, I'll use just one of the the ACAD template. Well, then what happens is you have a drawing that has none of the settings for architectural. And so under Format and Units, you don't have the proper units. And so if you were to try to draw with a title block other than the B-size architectural one, and then you try to say, I want to go 10 feet, you'll get an error because the units are not properly set. And that's all there's to it. The units are tied to the title blocks that we have in the templates. And so in the templates that we're using for AutoCAD 116 under Content, for Module 2, you want to use an architectural title block. And Al's got the title blocks right here. You just download the architectural title block, and then you draw the exercise for Module 2. And we can talk and answer any questions that students have about technique. This is just a Zoom video to show how to stay on task. Then if you've decided to do the mechanical prints are right here, and those will use we'll use a mechanical template because the units are set for decimal, and so you need to use the B-size mechanical. And there's a tutorial here that shows you how to draw these. Alrighty, back to the main splash page. So as you look at the outline of topics and when things are due and things like that, Al has the due dates for Module 2 as Sunday, October 3rd, or excuse me, as today, October 3rd. And if you need more time, you can request an extension. If you request an extension, we'll provide that. But you want to try to meet the deadlines. It's typical for people, they have to ask for extensions on work, and that's the way we run the policy. But if they are late, after a while, you may incur a late penalty of 1 to 3 points, depending how late it is. Under content, Module 3 goes through basic drawing setup. And so when we look at basic drawing setup, we're looking at using a template, basic steps for setting up a drawing. And I realize this is a bit small, so let me go get this from here. Basic steps for setting up a drawing, how to use a template, and then like we talked about, units. Okay, units are set. Okay, either you program them in or you go through and you choose the correct title block. And what the title blocks have done is we've set up the limits, grid and snap, and then some of these other basic functions like layers and line types. And so as we look at the chapter does a good job of just explaining the theories, but it's a little difficult, right? Because there's, you're reading how to draw. And so what you want to do is you want to look for commands like units, limits, zoom, snap, and grid. So as you read for what is important in the command side. And so as we go through and we look at things, we'll explain those to you. But ideally, if you use the template for the architectural drawing, or if you use the template for the mechanical drawing, or if you use the template for the general design, and Module 3 is general design template. It's just like Module 1. We would go and open that template, and then we would go and create the drawings. And Al and I have set the templates up with this information, and so this is all just a lot of detail things. But as a new student, you might be like, wow, that's like, do I need a mechanical engineering degree for that? No, but from a standpoint of being able to reference and have that information, the textbook does a really great job. It just goes into some really detailed information, and we'll explain that to you. And so when we work with the limits will show the grid area depending on how you have the display setting, the grid display. It's called grid displays, the actual command to put those on. And we've set up the grid display on them. And so we go through this chapter and we learn about the grids and the snaps and how to set those drawings up. Here's information on how to work with grids and grid spacing and a lot of the settings. And so back to the D2L. The drawing assignment is really straightforward. We're going to draw these 5 plates. And so what you'll do is you'll download the you'll download the template, and then we have videos set up for how to create these different drawings that are in here. And so as we look at the exercises are different. You could actually continue on the first one and just add layout tabs. And so here's what the first one looks like. And what I'll do is I'll just scotch this over, and then what we want to do is we want to download the template for this exercise. And so the template for Module 3 is this one right here. And so we download this plate drawing template and we open it. Okay, here's our template. I'm just pushing the mouse to pan it. If I turn the wheel, I can move it. And then Format, Tools, drafting settings, snap and grid. Snap is on at 1/2 an inch, and grid is on 1/2 an inch also. Polar tracking is enabled, and on these you don't need O-snap, so I'm going to turn off O-snap. O-snap will kind of fight with you because they go through whether the snap location is stronger than the O-snap location. So just turn off O-snap. And then when we look at the exercise, what we're looking at to make that drawing, is we have these circular shapes. And so the templates are designed to show you how to use these different geometries like center, radius. You can also use other circle creation techniques, but it's just a general design project. And so what we do is we start off, I'm on layer 0 and it's blue, and I draw a circle. Notice that my cursor is only moving within the grid and the snap because they're both enabled. And then you just go ahead and draw a circle and repeat. And when you draw the circle, notice that I'm not going at an angle because the number will be different because the radius is bigger. It doesn't fit on the grid. And so it's important to choose the locations properly for that. And then you can repeat the circle command and just count squares. And so we could say this one is 2 squares up from the top edge, and then we could repeat that. Or you could start using modify commands, and so you could use the copy command and you could select the objects to copy, give it a base point, and then make a copy of what to draw. And then you can right mouse click enter, and then we can draw another circle. The arc is a little bit trickier to draw on this. I use 3-point arcs. And you can see it should be a little bit over. And so you can grab them and you can pull them to the right location. That's one of the nice things about AutoCAD. And then you can either draw them again, or you can array them. And we have a video that shows technique, but since you guys are in the video meeting, if I wanted to create an array of it, I could do that. I could just say polar array. I could select this, and I could set that for 4. Kind of like the chair. Takes a little while for the graphics to update. And then be sure to fill out the title block information down here at the bottom. Your initials, plate 1, proper date, and student name. And then down here on the bottom you can use the next tab. And we can go back to D2L. And then we can get plate number 7. And then you can draw plate number 7 on the next tab. Again, it doesn't always carry over the grid and the snap, so check the grid and the snap when you change layout tabs. This one has grid and snap enabled, polar tracking enabled, and O-snap off, which is fine. And then over here, here's my drawing. Again, just some basic geometries and shapes, and so as we go through and we draw with the circle command. As far as the location on the drawing, you can, be really precise if you want to. It is good to have a nice, neat drawing, that's centered on there, and so you do want to do that. It shows that you are organized and pay attention to details. And so as we look at this drawing, it basically just has these two, I call it a robot face. And if you count each square as a 1/2 an inch, you could just count 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inches, 4 inches over. Sometimes I'll make a construction line like that, 4 inches, and then I'll erase it afterwards to keep my measurements accurate. But there are videos on how to create this. Notice that it works well because OSNAP is not on. So when OSNAP is on, it will give you some problems sometimes. So be careful and make the drawing without the OSNAP command. Alrighty, back to the D2L. We have videos for all these, so to go through all the details in the Zoom meeting would probably be a little more than we want to do. And then Module 3. Read through Chapter 6 and Chapter 7. We have additional drawing assignments here. These are bonus assignments. We'll mark them as general design and bonus. Complete the 5 plates and read through the chapter. Here's the videos that tie into Chapter 6 and Chapter 7. So if you go to the Chapter 7 video. Hi, Joe Cerrone, Basic AutoCAD. Today we're going to take a look at Chapter 7, Object Snap. And so I'll go through just like we're doing here in our video meeting. And so I'm demonstrating how to create these different shapes according to the textbook. Alrighty. Module 3. Alright, and so here's the objectives. Okay, read the chapter. Blue, color-coded. Green, draw it. Red, take the module examination. And you're able to use your textbook and your computer. Okay, their quizzes are located here under quizzes and exams, and it's here for the test 3. Al has also released the midterm practice test. Al, do you want to talk a little bit about that, or would you like me to? So the midterm practice test is set up for unlimited attempts, and it opens up today, and then the actual midterm will be October 15th, I believe. If we look in the outline, if we look at the calendar, we have it actually starts on the 3rd. I've got to update that, but we have a couple of weeks yet before that. We just wanted to give everybody a heads up on that information as we go through. Alrighty, so that is our Zoom classroom meeting for Module 3. Keep an eye on the calendar and the outline of topics. In the main splash page, we have the information for you. And remember, it's no problem to email us and request some assistance. Put a CAD file in there and say, I'm having some trouble with this, and we can look at it and then get back to you on Zoom or on the D2L assistance. All right, with that, I'm going to stop the recording and open things up for questions.